Hello everyone, welcome to the series for the Java tutorial. Okay, so today we are going to discuss the topic of constructors and method overloading. Okay, so basically I'll just write that here. Constructor. Okay, what is the meaning of constructor? Basically, if you see the name itself, it is telling that it is something which is used to construct. What it is used to construct. Okay, a constructor in Java is a special method that is used to initialize the object, or in other words, it is used to construct an object. Okay, I'll just write the definition for more clarity. Is used, okay, or I can just mention that is a special method used to initialize an object. Initialize an object. Okay, or in the other words, I can mention that here is used to construct an object in the memory. Fine. Here I'm using, sorry, here special method. What does mean? What is the meaning of a special method? Why we are calling this as a method? Suppose in the last class we saw that when we are defining a method, we can just define, like here if I am writing for the person, that here I can simply write for a person class, okay, read details is a method. Then to display the details, I am writing show details is a method. Whereas when I'm telling that constructor is a special method means the name of the method must be same as name of the class. Okay, it cannot have any other name. This is one condition. Another condition is that it is not going to return any data type or any value, whereas it's going to return an object. Fine. Here, I'll write that. Why we are calling the special name? Name of the method must be same as name of the class. And moreover, here, when we are defining something as a method, it is going to have some return time. If there is no return type, usually we define that's void. Or suppose here, if I am writing, this is a return type. If we don't want to return anything, at least we have to mention as a void that it is not going to return anything. Okay. But here, and it does not return anything. Okay, in return, it's going to construct an object. That's a different story. Fine. So this is why we are calling this as a special method. Now we'll see that practically. I will start the NetBeans here, NetBeans there. Let me just create a new project. Fine. So here, Java application, I'll just give the name as Constructor EX. Okay. So name of the, like it has, let constructor EX is a package. Okay, then here I'll just delete this comments. Okay, let me just, fine. So here we got the main class or the driver class here. Fine. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll create a class over here, new Java class, and here I'll just create the class person. The class got created. I'll remove the comments. Okay, now I will define the attributes over here. Usually in a person, when I'm taking, every person is going to have an ID, that is int ID. Then every person is going to have a name, and nowadays every person has a mobile number associated. Fine. So now here we got this class is created. When I have to create an object, usually what I write here. Okay. Uh, Here, name of the class, user defined reference variable, new, then here person. If you see, when I'm calling this statement, now I'll understand what is this statement. Okay. Now, first I will just delete everything. Okay, just let me delete that here. Now, let me copy this person. Okay, so here, this is a constructor. This is a default constructor which is given. We did not write this constructor. If you go and check here in the class, did we write any method with the name as person? No, this will be provided by the package, this every class itself. Okay, so what it will do, it will create an object. I'll use the shape here. Okay, so which is going to be referred by a variable called p1, and inside this we are going to have the attributes, that is id, name and mobile. Okay, and as it is a default constructors, we did not define any value. Integer default it's going to be 0. Okay, string default it is going to be null. Integer default it is going to be 0. Now you can check it here. If I call, okay, display these values. So here system.out.println. Okay, and if I am writing name is fine, then here I'll just call that name. You will get the value as null. See that here I run this. Okay, what happened? Person, this name string. Okay, p1 dot it should display name is built. Why? What happened? Person constructor. What is the issue? Person is there. I should get this build successful, but why it is not showing? Println name is p1. Okay, let me just run it again here. It has built successfully, but it is not showing it. Why? Person. Where's split declaration? No need. We don't require that. It's to happen here. P1 dot name string. Similarly, just I want to call p1 dot id constructor mention in id java doc not found. Either Java documentation for the item does not exist, or you have added a specific the Java platform manager library manager. What has happened here? Something weird is happening. Okay. Let me just create another class. Well, let me delete this. Okay, let me delete the class. Delete. Okay, fine. It got deleted. Now when I run this, now it should give me an error because still it is showing me. Let me just delete this whole project. Let me just run this new project. Okay. Here I'll just give the name as constructor. Okay. Let me create an fine. Here we got this is constructor. The name of the package is constructor. Name of the main class, that is a driver class, is a constructor. Okay, so here in this I'll create an object, first class, sorry, here Java class, I'll keep the name as person. Fine. Now here in the person, I'll write the attributes which we required. So here I'll mention the attributes int ID, then the string name, then int mobile. Okay. Then here in the driver class, I'll create the object. Let me just create the object. Person P1 equal to new person. Okay. So here let me add system.out.println name is p1 dot suppose name. Fine. Let me run this here. Okay. Here it is showing that name is null. Because here if you see, we did not create this constructor specifically. This is a default constructor which will be provided to you. Fine. So now if I create any number of objects here, another object, suppose person P2 equal to new person like this. Fine. So now here, what happened that it is creating one more object and with the default values. Okay, here also it's going to have ID, which will be 0, name, which will be null, and here mobile, which is going to be again 0. And this is going to be referred by a variable called P2. Understand? So now what I'm going to do here, sorry. Okay. So you see that here we call this person new. Okay. Now, if I call this P2 dot name, again, it's going to be null only. Fine. So here I'm going to define a constructor. What did I say that the name of the constructor is going to be same as the class name person. Okay. And here, if I am writing this, you'll see that it is going to give me an error because it's not going to have any data types or any return type. Now here, I'll just run this. Okay. Person, I'll just write ID equal to 50. Okay. Or here I will write int. Fine. Now you see that here what it is showing me, that missing return type. Okay. Return ID. In this case, now here it is considering that as a different method, not like a constructor. So now here, when I run this, okay, then here I will call the ID, which I have assigned the ID, no? ID. Let me just check it. What is the value of this? It is 0. Whereas we have defined this ID as what? 50. It is supposed to be 50. But as we give this here return type, that's why it is considering that as a method. Fine. So for that, I will remove this. Okay. And it's not going to return anything. Now, when I run this here, it's going to create an object for P2, also same thing. If I call that with the P1, the value is going to be same. Okay, 50 only. So here, what's happening? It is creating an object with the ID. Here, what did I give in the default constructor? ID is equal to 50. So the value of every ID here, it is going to be 50. This is going to be 50. Fine. Similarly, if I want to assign the name equal to Smith and mobile equal to 845. So now what happened that here when I am constructing this, for every object it's going to assign the same value. Here name, if I just and that For every object, it's going to give me the name as Smith only. So that here P1 is Smith. Even if I call the name of the P2, it's going to be Smith only. Because here it created the object with the same values, Now, we don't want this to happen. We want every object to have the different values of the attribute. For that, here I'm going to write person, or I will modify the same thing here. I will write the parameterized constructors is string name, then integer id. Okay, sorry, it's a parameter id, then integer mobile. Okay, whatever the user is passing, I'm going to accept that. You see that here. Now, it is showing me that we don't have a constructor, default constructor. Whenever we write a parameterized constructor, the default constructors will go away. Means it will overwrite to the default constructor. Now we don't have the default constructor. If you want to use further for the default constructor, suppose here you are getting error over here. Now if I just write a dummy constructor, person, okay, now you'll see that you'll not get any error over here. It will go. Understand? Here it is showing P2, now P1. So here it's a default constructor I have right. Now I want to call this constructor. So if I want to call this constructor, I have to pass here three arguments, three values for this parameter. So now here the first argument is going to be name, which is something like here I'm writing Blake, then ID 2022-415 or 412, whatever you are giving it, and the mobile number is this. So now I'm calling this constructor. Okay, so the name, whatever the name I received it here, I want to assign to this name. So here I can write this dot name equal to name. This we saw in the last video. What is the use of this? Then similarly, this dot ID equal to ID. Then this dot mobile equal to mobile. Fine. So now here, what happened that whatever the values we are passing over here, now it will create an object. Let me delete this. Okay, it will create an object, okay, with the attributes in it. What is the attribute? First attribute here it is ID, then name, then mobile. For ID, whatever the ID I am passing here, what ID I am passing? Something as 2022 something something. Name here I am passing Blake, and mobile number 87 something, and it is going to be referred by a variable called P1. Okay, so this is object has been constructed. Now when I call this name, you can see that the name is going to be Blake. Now if I call here using constructing an object using this default constructor, I did not write anything in this. So what will happen that here I'll just create that person P2 equal to new person. Okay, now I will call here system.out.println name is fine for P2 dot name. So here when this constructor when it create the object here, this is the P2 object, suppose. So did you define anything in this default constructor? No, nothing. So here the value of ID default is going to be 0, name equal to be null, and mobile, again it's going to be 0. And it is pointed by a reference variable called P2. So now here when I run this, you see name is null. So here I am writing two constructor. This is one is default constructor, another is parameterized constructor. So as per your requirement, you can have any number of constructors. This concept is called as constructor overloading. Suppose I am writing one more constructor with only ID. Okay, so here this dot id equal to id. Fine. I can call this constructor to assign only id to this. Suppose here I'm calling here person p3 equal to new person. Here I'm passing the id something as 2023-48. Now I'll call this I'll display the value of this. Okay, here for P3, how the constructor has been called now? It is going to create an object. Fine. Here you have attributes ID, name, and mobile. Okay, so now here if you see, it is calling which constructor? One parameterized constructor. So here it's going to call this. So whatever the value you are passing from here, okay, 2023 here, id is equal to 2023, okay, 458. Remaining name is going to be null, mobile is going to be 0. So now here when I run this, you can see that here it is showing name as what? Null. Then if I call id, it will show me this id. So here when I run this, you see this name is this. Okay, and if I call this mobile, okay, sorry, mobile. Okay, when I run this, it is going to be 0 because I did not assign. I assigned only this. So here we have these are the constructors. So here this is the concept of constructors which is used to construct an object or to initialize an object. Here as per your requirement you can write. Suppose here I write this. Then I can just write another method here. Show, okay, details. When I am writing this show details is a normal method, so it's going to returns some value. If not returning, we should write that void. Okay, then here I am writing system.out.println. Here I write name is, okay, so here name, id is here id plus then mobile number is here we write mobile. Okay, now what I'll do, I will remove all these statements and simply I will call p1 dot show details. Similarly, p2 dot show details, then p3 dot show details. Now, when I run this, you can see that here for the first p1, I call the three parameter constructor. It is showing that the name is Blake, ID is whatever I pass there, the mobile number. Then here I call the default constructor for the P2 where the values are what I have the attribute name is null, ID is 0, mobile is 0. Then I call a constructor of one parameter. So it is assigning only to what? ID. So here it is just showing name is null, whereas ID, it has some value and mobile equal to 0. So this is your parameterized constructors. Remember here, If you write any return type, it will behave like a normal, suppose here, a method. It will not consider as a constructor. Now, here you see it is giving me an error over here. Why? Because it's unable to find out the constructor. Here, no suitable constructor is fine. Understand? So if you want to call this, suppose here, this is just like a method. You need to call explicitly, like here, p2 dot person by passing some value. Hope you understand. So that's the reason a constructor is not going to have a return type, and the name of the constructor must be same as the name of the class. Whereas you can just write here public, no problem. You can just mention that as a public. Okay. But you should not write the return type of this. So hope this is, you understand. Similarly, here this is a concept of constructor overloading. We have the concept of method overloading also. What do you mean by method overloading? Methods with the same name but with the different parameters, different number of parameters and return type. Suppose here I'll just write show details. Okay, now when I am writing this, now you see that here it is giving me an error. Why it is giving me an error? Method show detail is already defined. Now what I will do, I will just write int x. Now the error has gone. Why? Because see that here it is 0 parameter, it is what? 1 parameter. So same name with the different number of parameters. This is method overloading. So here system dot out dot println I okay, or it display only ID. Okay, suppose here it is has been designed to display the ID. Now, if I want to call this method, what I need to do here, p3 dot show details, whereas I need to pass a integer variable. Now you see that here it display only ID. So this is the concept of method overloading and constructor overloading. It is not overriding. Overriding is different concept. When we start the inheritance, that is a overriding. Whereas here this concept is called overloading. Okay. Suppose if you see that here, if I keep it. Now, in case here, if I change the return type, is it accepting? Method details already defined. No, it is because number of parameters matters. Here I have to give this. Then here, if I'm not changing it is keeping as same, fine.